Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. What's up guys, Dave here from Metal Epidemic, back with another album review, and for this review Duncan Kyle and myself have been checking out the new album from Italian post-metal collective La Fin, or, if you're from Scotland, La Fin. The band's new album, Endless Inertia, will be released on October 9th via Argonauta Records. These guys released an EP back in 2016 called Empire of Nothing. And the band said that their upcoming debut album continues that massive sound, infused by various extreme metal influences, balancing between post-metal, prog, post-hardcore, and black metal. So, the upcoming album was recorded and mixed at Phonograph Studios and mastered by James Plotkin, who has worked with Sun, Isis, Tim Hecker, what's the guy, Ennio Morricone, Pelican. Worked with him as well. I'm sure we reviewed something recently that James Plotkin was involved in. I cannot think what it was, but
name rings a bell.
Definitely.
So yeah. I thought you were going to say I'm sure we reviewed some Ennio Morricone. I was like, wrong podcast, Dave. That's the classical Epidemic.
This sextet brings the orchestral dimension pioneered in their debut EP to a whole new level. And into a 53-minute long path of musical narrative, approaching the concept from 9 different points of view. The Endless Inertia is an album that inquires into the human mind and its awareness of time and will, exploiting the concept of inertia as a metaphor for quiet and stillness in people's life, whether suffered or intentional. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, yeah, this is the kind of album that you can really get your teeth into. There's a lot to dissect in this. These guys they're definitely a post-metal band at their core, but as like I said earlier, they do like to kind of blend in other styles throughout this release. A band that involve a lot of layers and textures, Duncan, which I know you're a fan of.
Oh, this is my bag, big sexy Dave. I was like within like 10 seconds of this album kicking off, I was fully erect and ready to fuck.
Oh my god! Jesus.
No, sorry. Oh man, if only people could know how many takes it took to get this recording started.
We're not stopping now, Duncan.
We're not, we're
Just
too
keep
far
going.
into it. We're too far into it. We're too far into it. The inertia is pulling us forward, Dave. So, no, I mean, there is... The big thing that kind of stood out to me straight away about this one was a complexity and depth of sound. Proper soundscapes here. And we've already reviewed a couple of albums this year that have been what I would imagine is a record producer's worst nightmare. You know, just like a fucking full page just full of tracks. But
are we talking about Imperial Triumphant by any chance?
Yes, yeah. I think the Patience of a Sphinx award should go to the guy that recorded that album this year, because Jesus Christ. No, I think what kind of captivated me about this is not only and I see, obviously, once again, the ongoing joke here, I don't read the press for any of these things. If Lisa's listening, I'm sorry. I don't. But sometimes I think that benefits me in terms of I don't go in necessarily having any sort of genre block of what the label or the marketing people are saying about the album, or who I think these should sound like because someone else thinks these should sound like that. And what kind of stuck out to me very, very quickly is this band have like elements that are so broad and wide, from things like Isis and Cult of Luna through to things like Gojira and Tool, and it's all kind of mixed together. in this really satisfying way. The thing that I kept feeling the longer the album went over is how happy I was to be lost in the sound. And I felt myself very much getting kind of disorientated as to, well, where are we now? How far are we into this song? The concept that you're mentioning there about taking one single point and like taking it from 9 different perspectives, almost like a kind of like a weird musical Rashomon, I think is really, really, really cool. Yeah, that's right, Rashomon, Dave.
Oh, what?
There we go. That's for
fucking hell.
Out of nowhere. I think that's really clever. I also think that, weirdly, now that I know that, the album makes a bit more sense, because there is common themes and motifs that appear to be kind of revisited later on in the album, like not verbatim, but they are certainly playing on those ideas. I mean, vocally, this is fucking stunning. Like, nice and heavy, chunky, almost Gojira-esque tone to the vocals, which belie like beautiful melody, like absolutely beautiful melody. Great use of orchestration, synthesizers are in there as well, no doubt. But the production on the rest of the instrumentation, chunky and heavy, but when those quieter moments come in, quite tender sounding as well. And as a result, it's an album full of, like, classic Metal Epidemic phrases here, light and shade. There's a lot of that in here. They're very bright sounding, very optimistic, positive sounding sections, which are a complete contrast with some of the heavier, uglier elements on the album. And when I say ugly, I don't mean necessarily about the production, just the thickness of the sound just feels kind of, you want to take a shower after listening to it. Yeah. It's fucking brilliant, and what depressed me so much before hitting record on this review was the fact you told us this is their debut album, which, I mean, bands just shouldn't have their shit this much together on album number 1. I mean, that's kind of frustrating, you know what I mean? As a guy who tried to get his shit together many times in bands, it just sometimes feels like the deck's stacked and not in your favour. But just pointing out some of the highlights in the album for me, I like the initial song, Inertia. I think is like this really great way to kick it off. It's nice and long, allows you to breathe in, get the kind of get a really good feel for things. The album takes a colossal step up on Zero, the second track, which is for the most part this really heavy fucking track. You've got, like, once again, shades and waves of Gojira in there. And then it breaks out into this beautiful melodic section towards the end, which just caught me so off guard. And it's so well structured. Things like Disembody, which comes much later on in the album, I think also add a complete contrast to what you've got before. They're playing with their elements, but they're doing it really interestingly. And then by the time you get right through to the last track, the longest one on the album, the aptly named Eulogy, you kind of, like, I was spent after my first listen. I was just like, but I wanted to go back and listen to it again straight away. It is one of the more captivating albums I've heard this year. I think they bring in all the elements really, really well. It's very well crafted, it's very well written, and much like we were talking about with The Ocean, like last week, a couple of weeks ago, depending on when the review dropped, when we were talking about their new album, we were talking about like actual craft, like craftsmanship, where someone sits down and painstakingly positions things because they want it to sound the best it possibly can, as opposed to, well, that could be track 1 because it's a fast one, this one will be track 2 because it's not as fast. This one feels like it has been written to tell a story, and as such, everything fit. I thought this was fucking brilliant, and this has been the highlight of the week for me in terms of the albums I've listened to. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Nice. Kyle, what about yourself? What did you make of Endless Inertia?
By La Fin.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, possibly.
I am not going to try and pronounce that name. I'm very sorry, guys. It's just not happening. Yeah. What is it, La Phone? No.
If anyone wants to clarify it in a non-sarcastic way on YouTube, we greatly appreciate that. But if your sarcasm's in coming hot and heavy, fuck right off. So There you go.
Just right off. Yeah, no, I was taken aback by this one because with a name like La Fin and Inertia, I didn't know what to expect, but it really gave me a. It's like it's really aggressive, but still very progressive at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just like I was taken aback because usually you hear albums that like they're progressive, like Tool or something like that, but the aggression can lack. Not that it doesn't Tool all that often, but this one had them both in spades, and I was like, "Yep, I'm here for this. Okay, that's great." And also, the production was really good too. Like you guys were saying, there's a billion things to take care of, and I can only imagine what the production guy was, or whoever it was, what they were doing in the mixing studio. Just like, why do you 6 people exist in my studio? What the hell? Get out, but also stay because this is really good. I mean, it's not often that you get a band that can do like the clean, light stuff as well as they do all the aggressive, heavy stuff. But these guys pull it off so well, and the transitions between the two are just absolutely flawless. There's no. I wasn't sat there thinking that was a weird thing to do, or even if it was weird, it worked really well. That was one thing that really got me, because sometimes, I mean, even when I do songwriting, sometimes I just like to go bang, it's now clean. It was heavy, now it's clean. But they kind of like just stripped away elements and brought other ones in until it had all the way transitioned into the new part, and it was like, this is really good, really fun to listen to.
Yeah.
And I think for me, a standout tracks would be the first one, definitely. That really set the tone and got things going straight away. It was fantastic. And Black Body, I think that was my favourite one.
Yeah.
Really, really, it started out just and then ended super melodic, and I was like, okay, nice.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah, I think James Plotkin was involved with the Zombie album, so I don't know if it might have been that, Duncan.
That's what it'll be. Yeah, that's what it'll be.
Could have been that. Could have been that. Anyway, yeah, I much agree with everything you guys have said. Thoroughly enjoyed this album. From the opening track, Inertia, absolute powerhouse and opener. Like 9 minutes long, but it's absolutely stacked with riffs. Great range of dynamics as well, like it's got a little kind of somber kind of intro with the clean pick guitars, clean vocal melodies, and then after about a minute and a half or so, full band kick in and just explode into like a wave of post-metal heaviness. Amazing intro. Loved the first track. Probably worth mentioning, these guys have 3 guitars. So if you're wondering where that wall of sound is coming from, then it's probably there. The 3 guitars they've got. The guitar sound is just like absolutely crushing. It's sludgy, it's dense, but they also load a lot of this with like atmospheric moments, nice chords and nice lead work as well. There was little hints for me. I found there was little hints of like the ocean in there, a bit of Pelican, a band called Amenra. They can remind me of them a little bit on the kind of more melodic tones. But actually, the one weird one that I picked up a couple of times was the Danish band Textures.
Oh yeah, man! I was thinking about them today as well.
Was you?
Yeah.
It hit me on a few tracks. It's kind of middle of the opening track. Where they kind of add a bit more of a progressive feel to some of the rhythms. That's what I was thinking of. I was thinking this has got a bit of Textures kind of feel about it. And it's one thing.
There's another band you just reminded me of right now. They're another Italian like post-metal prog rock band. They're out on Basic years ago called Damned Spring Fragrantia, and they've got a lot of similarities. I wouldn't be surprised if they share some band members, to be honest.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah, they were a good band actually.
I really like them.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just...
That's all right. Yeah. I was just going to say it's one thing I loved about this album. Although they sit within that kind of post-metal genre, it's not typically slow and kind of sluggish sounding, which a lot of post-metal bands tend to kind of lean towards. There's a really varied tempo and rhythm on this album. It's almost like progressive post-metal at times. And then obviously they mentioned post-hardcore in the press release, and I could hear a little bit of that on the second track. On that, almost like the intro riff had a bit of a post-hardcore kind of vibe. It's only a few seconds before it kind of kicks into an absolute pummeling, but I just picked up slightly just from the intro riff. The lead work on that track reminded me a little bit of Intronaut at times in the beginning of the track. but then as the kind of track progressed, it went in a kind of whole other direction. They do this thing where they throw in this big kind of huge clean section in the middle of a track, and then it kind of builds up to this big kind of massive end piece, which is still heavy, but the melodies and the clean vocals, I was picking up a bit of a almost like Devil Sold the Soul type vibe at times as well. And they use that same type of flow on a track called Hypersleep as well. You know, a lot of melody and intimate kind of melodies in the middle of the track, and then when the heavy parts kick in, it sounds even like more vast than it normally would next to another heavy section. But I totally agree on the Gojira thing. I could pick up a little bit of that as well on that track. I have to agree with you, Duncan. The vocals on the album were absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Right across the album. I thought Disembody was a really good example of like the varied tones and different kind of consistencies that the album has to offer. But to be honest, variations some of this album has in spades. You know, each track on here has a different like quality or structure or something that makes it really interesting to listen to. And I think like because there's so much going on, it's almost impossible to take it all in first listen. But the more and more I listened to it, the more I kind of got out of it. Like there was some little really nice like jazzy chords in the background of a track called The Endless. And I never picked up on it the first time through, but you know, on my second and third listen to it, I started to hear those little elements that I'd missed the first time round. And speaking of that track, Endless, there's a huge kind of sliding, kind of bendy riff about 4.5 minutes into the track. Completely floored me. Absolutely loved it. I'm not sure if one of the guitars is tuned lower, or if if one of them was using an 8-string or something like that, but there was definitely a few occasions where they just kind of like to kind of riff out on that bottom string, and it sounds huge.
Yeah, there's like an additional level that lower that they seem to be able to just tap into every now and again.
Yep.
So that would make sense. I mean, if I had 3 guitarists, I would make sure one of them had the capacity to do that.
Yeah,
and their sounds, and it would like make sense.
Yeah. It definitely stood out. Tracks like Hypersleep and what was the other one, Repetita. You definitely hear it on there, that kind of low end, the kind of bottom string. But to be honest, there was a moment on every track where I was like, you know, that stood out. It was like, oh, that's really clever, or I like the way they've transitioned into that. I think I agree with Kyle. I think Black Body was my favourite track on the album as well, actually. It's just like it's got everything and the kitchen sink thrown into that track. So many great riffs and moments, but in particular, and I've mentioned this before in other reviews, but there's a section where they go kind of blast beats, but with big kind of clean guitars, and the vocals are all kind of drenched in reverb and stuff. That really stood out on that track to me. Something that I picked up on, I think it was Black Crown Initiate, they do it as well. But again, it really works here on this album. There's something about that kind of like the intensity of the drumming and the rhythm that shouldn't really gel with clean melodies, but it totally does. I really dug this. There's a lot to like about this album. I've listened to it maybe about 5 times, and I'm not even nearly bored of it yet. Cracking album from a band that I'd never heard of before either. Rating wise,
it's their first album, isn't it?
I know, which is just like, that's just ridiculous.
Were they born with guitars in their hands or something? Just fuck off being so goddamn good. It took me years to get half as good as they are, and I'm just sat here like, I'm just gonna give up. First fucking album.
Oh man. I hate it when they're good at stuff. Yeah.
Ratings. Okay. Out of 5, I would probably give this a 4.5 out of 5. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes up later in the year after I've had more time with this, but at the moment I'm probably sitting about a 4.5.
Something went up when I listened to it.
Hi-oh. Whoa. Oh dear, it's getting hot in here. I'm fully committed to the 5 as it stands just now. I actually hate myself for giving out as many 5s recently. So I really am just like passing them out like Eki tablets in a rave. But you know what I mean? I am like, I think this is like front to back, like a flawless album, like absolutely flawless. And not only is it a flawless album, because you can have that but still not be an appealing album, this album is a hugely engaging and appealing album, and it shouldn't be with the amount of detail and work that's going on. It should feel imposing to get into, and it doesn't. Like you say, Dave, every time you go in, very much like when you're kind of traversing a maze, every time you go in there's another avenue you can go down, and you know, it feels like there's the potential for kind of endless journeys of exploration in the album are there, but none of them feel like a challenge. You know, like I'm not sitting with an abacus trying to work at the tempo or the time signature. You know, you don't have to. It's a very, 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 very well written album. So yeah, I'm coming in with a 5 again.
Nice. Kyle, what about yourself?
I mean, like, I really love this album, and I love the band for making an album like this that I could just get along with so well. But it's their first album, and I hate them for it. It's like, I want to give them a 5, but I'm like, it's a very begrudging 5, if you know what I mean. It's like, this is just too good, and why are you so good? I just don't understand. But it's a 5. It's a 5. I just have to give it a 5. There's nothing else I can give it. I just got along with it so well and listened to it about 50, 100 million times in the short time I had it. And it's just like, you know, when I'm in two minds. Well, not two minds. I've got a lot of feelings about this album. It's just obvious. It's like, this is amazing. What do you mean it's your first one? Get out of my fucking office.
Get my office. Oh, man. Oh, dear.
Nice one. Yeah.
What's the name of the band again, Dave?
La Faune. I don't know.
I think it's Lafon, but it's spelled Lafin, LA space FIN.
I swear you're saying the phone.
It's just the Scottish in me, Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, check them out. I'll put a link in the description below to their Facebook. I'm not going to say it again, but there is a link in there where you can go to their Facebook page. Check out the album, Endless Inertia. Drops on October 9th on Argonauta Records. Once again, thanks for checking out our review. And we'll be back with another review very soon. Until then, take care. I will speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.